I was just a waiter serving coffee to a quiet billionaire when I spilled some on his sleeve and spotted a tattoo that froze me. It matched my mother's exactly. I whispered, "Sir, my mother has a tattoo just like yours." He instantly fell to his knees. My life was a quiet hum, predictable and safe. But one ordinary morning, a spilled cup of coffee didn't just scald a powerful man, it scalded the truth right out into the open, revealing a secret so deep, it shattered everything I knew about my past. And that man? He wasn't just a customer anymore. I'm Tristan Ward, 32 years old, just a waiter at a little cafe called Harbor Light, right by the Seattle harbor. My life? It was simple. Wake up, brew coffee, serve customers, then head home to my mom, Renee. She was my whole world, you know? A tough, resilient woman whose hands were calloused from years of laundry work, raising me all on her own. I never knew my father. Mom always just said he left when I was little, and I accepted it. But sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of the tattoo on her wrist, 2 interlocking rings, faded ink, a symbol of a broken promise, and I'd wonder about the life she had before me. A life perhaps more beautiful than the one we had. That morning, the Seattle sky was its usual gray, a soft drizzle making the streets glisten. The cafe was buzzing, laughter mixing with the grind of the coffee machine, the rich scent of roasted beans filling the air. I was just wiping down the counter, making sure every cup was spotless, when the door chimed. In walked Leonard Baxter, right on time, as always. He was our most regular customer, always taking the corner table overlooking Elliott Bay. Black coffee, no sugar, nothing else. Just sat there, silent, staring out at the sea like he was trying to solve the world's biggest riddle. And trust me, everyone in Seattle knew Leonard Baxter. He was a titan, owner of Baxter Arms, a massive empire. They called him the Man of Steel, cold, reserved, rarely a smile, and definitely no small talk. He was about 70, with snow-white hair and a face etched deep with decades of power. Always in a sharp black suit, yet he seemed so incredibly lonely, like all his wealth couldn't fill the void inside him. I always wondered why a man like that chose our little cafe. Maybe for the quiet, or maybe for our brutally strong coffee. Either way, I just served him carefully, never daring to pry. That day, I brewed his coffee just right. Medium roast Ethiopian, slowly pouring the hot water to coax out every bit of flavor. The cup was steaming, wisps of vapor curling up. I carried the tray through the crowded room. It was packed, loud voices, someone cracking a joke about Seattle weather. I was weaving through the narrow aisle, thinking it was just going to be another ordinary day. But then, out of nowhere, a customer, big, burly guy, rushing to pay, he bumped into me. Hard. The tray tilted wildly. The scalding hot black coffee, dark as ink, spilled all over Mr. Baxter's expensive suit jacket. My heart sank straight to my stomach. "Oh God, I'm so sorry, sir!" I stammered, my face burning crimson. I quickly set the tray down, fumbling for a cloth from my apron. The cafe went quiet. A few heads turned. Mr. Baxter just sat there, jacket soaked, but he didn't get angry. Instead, he gave this faint, almost gentle smile, a rare sight, and said in a deep, warm voice, "It's all right, young man. It's just coffee." He took off his jacket, hung it on the chair, and started to roll up his shirt sleeve to wipe away the spill. And that's when I saw it. Right there on his wrist. 2 interlocking rings. Black ink, faded with time. Identical. Exactly like the one on my mother's wrist. I froze. My mouth went dry, my heart hammered like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. It couldn't be. That tattoo. Mom had it since she was young. She always said it was a memory of an old love, a vow long forgotten. I'd never seen anyone else with it. "The tattoo?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper, shaking uncontrollably. It's exactly like my mother's." Mr. Baxter heard me. He stopped dead. His eyes widened. The color drained from his face. From calm to profound shock, like he'd been stabbed. His hand trembled, his lips moving soundlessly. I could see him trying to speak, but the words were choking in his throat. The entire cafe seemed to freeze with him. The distant crash of waves from Elliott Bay suddenly sounded deafening. I didn't understand anything, just this vague, rising dread. Who was this man? Why the identical tattoo? And then, it was like a dam breaking. All the pent-up emotions exploded. He collapsed. To his knees. Right there, on the cafe floor, in front of everyone. Tears streamed down his face, hitting the old wooden planks. The cafe fell completely silent. No voices, no clinking cups, just his ragged breathing. "My son!" he whispered, his voice shattering. "My son!" He clutched at my legs. I stood there, frozen. Completely unable to comprehend what was happening. My mind was spinning, my heart racing wildly. In that single moment, I knew only one thing: my life had just changed forever. A secret from the past had been dragged into the brutal light, and I was utterly unprepared to face it. The cafe began to buzz again, whispers spreading like wildfire. Someone was taking photos, someone else was on the phone, but I didn't care. I tried to help him up, my hands trembling as they touched his shoulder, the shoulder of a powerful man, now frail, like any ordinary old man. He struggled to his feet, wiped his tears with his sleeve, then gently gestured for me to sit at a nearby table. His eyes were still red, but he was trying to regain his composure. "You sit down, son," he said, his voice hoarse. "I need to ask you a few things." My legs felt like jelly. I sat. The whispers grew louder. Tristan turned slightly to the camera, with a knowing smile. "By the way, if you're still with me on this wild ride, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't believe the stories I've got coming, and trust me, they're just as unbelievable as this one." Mr. Baxter looked at me, his eyes deep and searching, as if rummaging through decades of memories. He asked slowly, word by word, his voice raspy, "Your mother? What's her name?" Why ask that? But then I thought, it must be the tattoo. "Renee," I stammered. "Renee Ward. She's my mother." Just that. But those words were like a time bomb. Hearing the name, his heart seemed to seize. His wrinkled face briefly lit up with a spark of hope in his cloudy eyes, then quickly plunged into overwhelming pain. He sighed heavily, his voice choked with emotion. "Renee. My God, my Renee?" He gripped my hand, cold and shaking. "I need to see her. Now. Right now, son, take me to her." His plea was desperate, like not seeing her would literally kill him on the spot. My mind was chaos. How did he know my mother? What had happened between them? But looking into his eyes, full of desperation and regret, I knew this was something serious, deeper than I could ever imagine. I nodded, my voice faint. "All right. I'll take you." We left the cafe under a barrage of curious stares. I got into my old car, a beat-up 90s Ford, faded silver paint, an engine that rumbled like thunder, parked in the harbor lot. Mr. Baxter sat in the passenger seat, silent, his eyes fixed on Elliott Bay, just as they always were from the cafe. I drove, hands tight on the wheel, my heart restless. The drive from downtown Seattle to Fremont wasn't far, but that day, it felt endless. Rain started falling harder, wipers clacking, the radio crackling with economic news, mentioning Baxter Arms, his company. I glanced at him. He was clenching his fists, his lips pressed tight. "You know my mom?" I asked, trying to break the stifling silence. He just nodded, his voice low. "More than no, son. She was everything to me." Fremont appeared. Artsy neighborhood with graffiti and small bars. But our apartment was in a quieter, poorer corner, less bohemian charm, a 2-bedroom unit with damp walls and creaky wooden floors. We'd rented it since I was little, and Mom had turned it into a home with old photos and small potted plants. My mother, Renee Ward, now 60, was a tough, hard-working woman. Her hair was streaked with gray, always neatly tied, her hands calloused from 30 years of laundry work. She was strong, rarely cried, but her eyes carried a deep sadness. She was my pillar, teaching me that life is hard, but we must live kindly. That day, she was home, probably washing clothes or making tea, her daily routine. I parked in front, rain pouring. Mr. Baxter stepped out, suit soaked, but he didn't care. I knocked, my heart pounding. "Mom, I'm home. There's a guest." The door opened. Mom stood there in her old apron, holding a dishcloth. She looked at me, then at Mr. Baxter, and froze. Her face went white as if seeing a ghost. The cloth slipped from her hand, falling to the floor. "Leonard," she whispered. Her voice choked with a mix of raw emotion and hatred. Her eyes flashed with anger, then tears welled up. "Get out! You're not welcome in my home!" she shouted, her voice breaking, pushing him away. I panicked. I'd never seen her like this. "Mom, what's wrong? Who is he?" I held her, trying to calm her, but she was trembling, tears streaming, screaming. Mr. Baxter stood outside in the rain, eyes down, silent. The scene twisted my heart, nerves, fear, curiosity surging. What happened between them? Why such hatred? I pulled Mom inside, closed the door, but Mr. Baxter remained, like a ghost from the past. Mom finally calmed down. He called me son," I said. My words stopped her. She looked at me, then through the door crack at him. After a moment she sighed, wiped her tears. "Fine. If he's here, let him in. But don't expect forgiveness." I opened the door, offered him a chair. Mr. Baxter entered silently, his eyes fixed on the old, damp wooden floor with its years of cracks. She sat opposite him, hands clenched, tears falling quietly. The air in the room was heavy, ready to explode. I sat between them, torn, unsure what to do. After a while, when Mom had calmed somewhat, she looked at me, her voice steadier, but still trembling. "Son, if it's come to this, I can't hide it anymore. I'll tell you everything." She took a deep breath, then began, her voice slow, like turning painful pages. "It was 30 years ago. A beautiful love, crushed by power and betrayal. Back then, she was 30. A quietly beautiful, resilient woman, living simply, working at a small laundry in the old neighborhood. Leonard Baxter, a talented man from a wealthy family, met her by chance when bringing clothes to wash. Love blossomed quickly, ignoring their class differences. "I once believed love could conquer all," she said, her voice choking. They tattooed interlocking rings on their wrists, a symbol of eternal promise. She spoke of secret dates, long nights by the bay, her eyes distant, as if still immersed in those memories. But the Baxter family found out. They saw her as a threat to their reputation. A poor girl, no match. They used money and power to force her away, even threatening to ruin her life if she stayed in touch. They sent people with a large sum, told me to disappear, she said, her voice full of raw resentment. Leonard? He was weak. Too spineless to defy his powerful family. She quietly left the city, pregnant with me. She gave birth alone in a small town, raised me in shame, enduring judgmental stares. I did everything for you to have a normal life, Tristan. No father, but a mother's love. As the story ended, the room fell silent, utterly still. I sat stunned, my mind swirling with past images. Mr. Baxter bowed his head, tears on his trembling hands. He looked up, his voice hoarse. "Renee, I'm sorry. I just want to reclaim my son. To fix everything." But Renee stood, turned away, her voice cold. "One apology doesn't erase 30 years of silence, Leonard. You chose family power. Now leave." She opened the door. Rain and wind rushed in, chilling the room. He stepped out into the Seattle night rain, his shoulders hunched like a lonely old man. I stood at the threshold, rain splashing my face, my heart torn. Should I run after the regretful father, or stay with my wounded mother? My heart pounded, anxious for what was coming. My life now was pure chaos. In the days that followed, everything felt like a prolonged bad dream. I returned to Harbor Light, brewing coffee and serving customers, but my mind kept drifting back to that evening. My mother, after revealing her past, now sat silently by the window, gazing at the damp Fremont streets. She spoke less. Sometimes I caught her staring at the tattoo on her wrist, caressing it as if cradling a painful memory. I wanted to ask more, but I feared reopening old wounds. And Mr. Baxter, my father, though I wasn't ready to call him that, didn't vanish as I expected. He kept coming back, persistent, like a ghost refusing to stay buried. The first time was 3 days later. I was mopping the floor after closing when I heard a soft knock. Opening the door, there he stood in the drizzle, holding a bouquet of white roses, the kind Mom once said she loved in her youth. Beside it, a pristine white envelope. "Son," he said, his voice hoarse. "I brought this for Renee." I shook my head, my heart heavy. "My mom doesn't want to see you, sir. She said she needs time." He didn't get angry, just nodded sadly and handed me the flowers and letter. "Please give them to her. And tell her I'm sorry." He turned and walked slowly into the rain, shoulders slumped as if carrying the world. I closed the door, a wave of sympathy rising. He was old, wealthy, yes, but so lonely, now suffering for a lost first love. But then I thought of Mom, the years she raised me alone, enduring judgmental stares. And anger surged again. He didn't give up. A week later he came again. And again. Always the same. Standing before our rundown apartment, bringing fresh flowers or a small gift box with a handwritten letter. The notes were sometimes just a few lines of apology. "Renee, I've never stopped thinking of you. Forgive this fool." Once he included an old photo, 2 young people smiling brightly by Elliott Bay, arms around each other, fresh tattoos still red. I gave them to Mom. She took them, her eyes red, but shook her head. "Son, I'll keep them, but I'm not ready to see him." She stored them in a drawer, with her other sad memories. I witnessed it all, terribly torn. On one side, sympathy for this aging father grieving his loss, his eyes always sincere when looking at me. On the other, Mom's pain. The woman betrayed, pushed into darkness for 30 years. I lay awake nights wondering, is there any way to heal this? Or is it all just an illusion? Occasionally, Mr. Baxter arranged to meet me at the old cafe, Harbor Light, where it all began. The first time he called, his voice weary, "Son, can I see you? Just a talk." I hesitated, but I agreed. He sat at his usual corner table, ordered black coffee, no sugar, his eyes on the bay. We talked awkwardly at first, about Seattle weather, my job. Then he asked about me. "How do you live? Is work hard?" I told him about long shifts, about Mom, and he listened, his eyes lighting up at mentions of her. Is she well? Does she still do laundry?" he asked, his voice trembling. I nodded, shared small stories, and gradually saw no deceit in his eyes, only a deep regret, like an unhealed wound. He spoke of his life, building Baxter Arms from nothing, but losing his greatest love. I was weak, Tristan. I let my family stop me, and now I pay. Those meetings made me anxious, afraid Mom would find out, but also warm. He always asked about her, and I shared just enough, not wanting to hurt her. He didn't just talk, he quietly helped us. A month later, the landlord called, saying 3 months' rent was paid from an unknown account. I knew it was him. Then gifts arrived. Premium supplements for Mom, the best for seniors, with nutritious food. I brought them home. Mom glanced at them and shook her head. "Son, I don't need pity from him." She wrapped them up and told me to send them back. I did, my heart heavy. He called afterward. "Son, I just want to help. She deserves better." I sighed. "Mom's proud, sir. She doesn't want it." His actions heightened the tension, me nervous, waiting for Mom's reaction. Fearing she'd be angry, I kept secrets. But she stayed silent, and I knew she was struggling inside. Then one morning, everything exploded. I woke early, brewed coffee, scrolled my phone, and my heart stopped. News flooded every outlet. Billionaire Leonard Baxter has illegitimate son living in Fremont. Photos of me at Harbor Light, smiling with customers, were now viral. The press dug deep. Defense tycoon's secret son, a poor waiter. I read, my hands shaking. Who took the photos? Who leaked it? The cafe got busier, but now with curious stares. Reporters swarmed, blocking the door, bombarding me with questions. Are you Baxter's son? What did he leave you? Passers-by whispered. Some pitted. Poor kid, just found his dad. Others sneered. Probably dreaming of riches now. I stayed silent, kept working, avoided questions. But inside, it was chaos. Anxious every time the door chimed, fearing another reporter. From cafe gossip, I heard the Baxter family was in turmoil. His wife, Elaine, and son, Connor, the official heir, were furious. They tried silencing the media, hiring lawyers, calling papers, threatening lawsuits. A co-worker said, "Heard the Baxters are in emergency meetings," the wife screaming. I pictured it. The lavish Baxter Hill mansion, now filled with rage. Mr. Baxter in that storm must be lonelier than ever. That night my phone rang. His number. His voice tired. "Son, don't believe what they say. I'll handle it." That was all. Then he hung up. I sat silent, my heart racing. Pressure from the public and media weighed heavy, not just on me, but on Mom. She now feared opening the door, always asking who's there, in a trembling voice. She locked up tighter, went out less. "I don't want them bothering us," she said, her eyes worried. I realized our peaceful life was swept into a storm we never wanted. Morning walks in Fremont now drew strange looks. I worried most for Mom. She'd suffered enough, and now she was facing the past again. My heart tore, pity for my father, anger at his family, fear for the future. This storm, tense and dramatic. Where was it taking us? After weeks of silence, when the media began to quiet down the rumors about the billionaire's secret son, I thought everything might finally settle. I returned to my old routine, brewing coffee at Harbor Light, caring for Mom, and trying to forget Mr. Baxter's handwritten letters still tucked away in the drawer. But then the news hit like an undercurrent. One morning, as I opened my phone and scrolled through the headlines, my heart tightened. Billionaire Leonard Baxter hospitalized with serious heart complications. The reports detailed he suffered a sudden heart attack, was rushed to a central Seattle hospital, then transferred after a few days to his Baxter Hill mansion for recovery and home treatment. Photos in the papers showed him looking older, face pale, but still with his familiar calm demeanor. I read it over and over, worry surging. He, my father, though I had never truly called him that from the heart, was seriously ill, and I never really acknowledged him. Those following nights, I tossed and turned, lying in bed, listening to rain pattering on the window. I thought of him. He had persistently apologized, sent letters, helped quietly. Even though Mom returned everything, he was alone in his empire, and now illness threatened. I was torn. Would visiting him betray Mom? But what would she think if she knew? In the end, compassion won. I didn't go for status or rumors. Those meant nothing to me. I went out of pity for an aging father, fighting alone amid power and isolation. The next morning, I called the cafe to take a half-day off, bought a simple bouquet of white daisies, unpretentious flowers, and drove my old clunker up the road. It was a gloomy afternoon, the Seattle sky gray, fog enveloping everything like a veil. I drove the steep roads to Baxter Hill, an elite enclave where massive mansions hid behind high fences and dense trees. My Ford rumbled awkwardly among gleaming luxury cars. My heart pounded as I reached the gate, a massive iron structure with cameras and uniformed guards. I stopped, rolled down the window, my voice slightly shaking. I'm here to visit Mr. Leonard Baxter. My name is Tristan Ward. The guard eyed me suspiciously, scanning from head to toe. A man in an old jacket driving a cheap car. Do you have an appointment? This isn't a place just anyone enters. They checked my ID, made a call, and I waited anxiously, sweat beading despite the cold. Suddenly, from an upstairs window of the mansion, Mr. Baxter appeared, weakly waving. The guards reluctantly opened the gate. Go in, but don't stay long. The mansion was vast, shrouded in oppressive silence. The sprawling garden featured stone statues and artificial ponds, but the air was tomb-like. I climbed the marble steps, my heart racing faster. The butler opened the door and led me to the living room, a luxurious space with leather chairs, wall art, and a crackling fireplace. Mr. Baxter lay on a chaise near the window, his face pale, an oxygen tube beside him. But he maintained his calm poise, as if illness were trivial. Seeing me, his eyes lit up slightly, a rare warmth. "Son, you came," he whispered, his voice weak but joyful. I sat beside him, placed the flowers on the table, my hands trembling a bit. "Dad," I heard myself say, "how are you?" "I heard the news and got worried." He grasped my hand, cold but firm. "I'm fine, son. Just an old heart. You coming is enough." We talked all afternoon. He spoke of his youth, building Baxter Arms from a small garage into a defense and energy empire. "I sacrificed much, Tristan. But now I only regret not having you by my side." I told him about Mom, our simple life in Fremont, and he listened, his eyes misty with emotion. I helped him take his medicine, brewed hot tea, and read a few pages from his favorite book, an old novel about the sea. Time passed slowly, but strangely warm. As dusk fell and the fog thickened, I stood to say goodbye. "I'll come back," I promised, my heart full of mixed emotions, anxious for stepping into his world, but fearful, knowing this was just the beginning. On my way out, in the grand foyer, polished stone floor sparkling, crystal chandelier, I unexpectedly ran into them. Elaine Baxter, 58, Mr. Baxter's wife, entered through the main door in a power suit, her hair in a tight bun, her face sharp as a blade. She was calculating, always controlling the family and Baxter Corporation. The press called her the Iron Queen. Beside her was Connor Baxter, 33, their only son, the official heir. Connor was tall, in an expensive suit, but with arrogant, condescending eyes, living in a bubble of status and fame. He looked down on anyone not in his class, as if the world revolved around him. Elaine paused briefly upon seeing me, her eyes flashing surprise, then quickly turning to contempt. She lifted her chin, her voice ice cold. "Well, if it isn't the illegitimate child himself, bold, daring to set foot in the Baxter home." Her words echoed in the vast foyer, full of insult. Connor beside her burst into loud laughter, deliberately echoing her sharp, humiliating voice. "How ridiculous! A waiter like you thinks you have the right to walk in here. Or do you believe a few tabloid rumors can make you family?" They continued mocking. Elaine's voice rising. "Know your place, young man. Don't think a few apology letters from him let you worm into the Baxter family. We don't welcome opportunists." Connor stepped closer, subtly shoving my shoulder to push me aside. A challenging, disdainful gesture, as if I were trash. My heart pounded, anger rising. But I stayed calm. I stood straight, my eyes steady on them. "I don't need to join this family. I just came to visit a sick man. My father." My voice was low and firm. Not loud, but strong enough. They froze. Elaine's mouth gaped. Connor's face flushed with rage. I bowed politely, turned, and walked away amid the tension. My footsteps echoed on the stone floor, anxious like war drums. Stepping out the gate, rain began to fall. I looked back at the mansion, shrouded in fog, realizing the real confrontation with the Baxter family had just begun. They wouldn't stop, and I had to prepare. After that illness at the mansion, Mr. Baxter's health deteriorated day by day. I kept in touch with him through short phone calls, his voice growing increasingly frail. He spoke of recurring heart attacks and doctors advising complete rest. But then, just a few weeks later, bad news struck. He was hospitalized again, in critical condition. The media covered it extensively. Billionaire Leonard Baxter near death from severe heart failure. Doctors advise family to prepare for the worst. Those words spread quickly, sparking a wave of noisy speculation in the press. People buzzed about Baxter Arms' massive inheritance, the heir, and of course, the illegitimate son, me. I read the news with a heavy heart, not for the fortune, but for him. The father I had just found, now lying in a hospital bed, fighting death. I ignored the rumors and curious stares at Harbor Light. Customers started whispering when they saw me. "Hey, isn't that Baxter's son? He's about to get rich." I just forced a smile, kept brewing coffee, wiping tables as if nothing happened. But inside, I was endlessly worried. Every day after my shift, I drove my old clunker to Seattle Central Hospital where he lay in a very important person room. A large space filled with beeping medical machines. I sat by his bed, holding his hand, feeling an ice-cold pulse faint. Mr. Baxter weakened gradually, his face gaunt, his hair whiter. But whenever he saw me, his eyes lit up a bit, like a final spark of hope. "Son, you came," he whispered, his voice breaking. I read him a few pages, usually old novels about the sea and life, which he loved. "Keep going, son," he said, his eyes closed but smiling. Those moments warmed my heart, but also made me anxious, fearing it might be the last. In contrast, Elaine and Connor only made brief appearances. I saw them a few times entering the room with fake expressions, Elaine forcing a stiff smile, Connor bowing politely, but his eyes full of contempt. They asked superficial questions. "How's Dad? What did the doctor say?" Then they left quickly, as if just going through the motions. Several times, catching me there, they only gave cold glances, suppressing anger, not wanting to cause a scene in front of Mr. Baxter. I clearly felt the hostility. Elaine clutching her purse tightly. Connor clenching his fists, as if holding back rage. They feared he was lucid. Feared he'd say something about me. I didn't care, focusing on him, but anger surged inside. How could they be so indifferent? He was their husband, their father. Their visits made the room's atmosphere heavier, and I waited anxiously, knowing if he passed, everything would explode. The press started spreading wild rumors. Illegitimate son could overturn Baxter arm inheritance. They dug into the past, interviewed insiders, speculated about the will. This enraged Connor. I heard on TV he held a brief press conference, his voice shrill. "I won't let anyone steal the Baxter fortune. It's our family legacy." He stared into the cameras as if threatening me. My heart went cold, not for the money, which I never dreamed of, but for his blatant greed. His words sparked public frenzy. Social media buzzed, one side supporting me as the lost son, the other mocking the opportunist. I turned off my phone, tried to avoid it all, but the pressure grew. One afternoon, after a tiring shift, I went to the hospital as usual. Mr. Baxter was sleeping. I sat reading beside him. Suddenly, in the hospital hallway, I ran into the two of them. Elaine walked ahead in an elegant black outfit. Connor following with a scowl. She glanced at me, eyes cold as if seeing someone beneath her class. A poor waiter daring to linger here. Connor stopped, smirked, and sneered. "Oh, it's you again. Playing the devoted son to win Dad over. Stop dreaming, kid. The money's mine." His voice was low but venomous, like a hissing snake. My heart raced, anger rising, but I stayed calm, remembering Mom's teaching, don't stoop low. I bowed slightly, walked away silently. No response. But inside I was anxious, knowing this was just the start of bigger clashes. That night, returning home, Mom sat at the kitchen table, her face pale. She recounted that morning Elaine and Connor had come, bringing contempt and threats. "They knocked hard, son," she said, her voice trembling. Elaine threw a newspaper with my photo on the table. Headlined, "Baxter's secret son could inherit billions," and told us to stay away from the Baxters. "You're just the past. Don't dream of intruding," she said sharply. Connor stood behind, a cold smile, calling me the bastard son chasing inheritance, and Mom someone without status who won't get a penny. His words cut like knives, full of insult. Mom said she was terrified then, her heart pounding, hands ice cold, but she stood tall, looking them in the eye. "You leave," she said firmly. Elaine, seeing this, clutched her bag and turned away, Connor grumbling, following with a threat, "You'll regret this." Her voice was calm retelling it, but I saw her hands still shaking, the callous fingers from years of laundry now gripping the table edge. I hugged her, my heart aching. How dare they come here and insult my mother? She had suffered enough. 30 years alone, now dragged into this whirlwind again. That night, I sat watching Mom doze off in her chair, breathing steady but her face still anxious. I realized the inheritance war I never wanted had truly begun. And this storm would sweep both of us into an unavoidable vortex. My heart raced. Anxious, thinking of what was coming. Mr. Baxter fading, the will hanging in the balance, and that family doing anything to eliminate us. 3 days later, Mr. Baxter's condition suddenly worsened. I was at Harbor Light, brewing coffee for the afternoon shift when my phone rang. A call from the hospital. The doctor's voice was cold but urgent. Mr. Baxter is critical. He's asking to see you immediately. My heart stopped. I dropped the tray, asked for emergency leave, and sped through Seattle's drizzling streets. The hospital loomed ahead, neon lights flickering under the gray sky, and I rushed through the corridors, the antiseptic smell overwhelming. His room was crowded with doctors and nurses, machines beeping relentlessly, the air heavy like a dark cloud. He lay there, his skin pale, his eyes cloudy, but it seemed he was waiting for just one person, me. A nurse signaled me in, and I approached, taking his hand. It was ice cold, his pulse faint, like a fragile thread. Dad, I whispered, my voice trembling, calling him that for the first time without hesitation. He gave a weak smile, his eyes fixed on my face as if memorizing a final image. Then he quietly passed, his eyes closing peacefully, leaving me sitting there, tears streaming. News of Mr. Baxter's death spread like a tsunami through the media. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire Leonard Baxter dies at 70, who inherits the massive fortune." From CNN to the local Seattle Times, coverage was relentless. Analyzing Baxter Arms, his life, and of course, the illegitimate son, me. My phone rang nonstop. Reporters blocking the cafe and our home, bombarding me with questions. How do you feel? Did he mention the will? I turned off my phone, locked the door, tried to escape it all, but my heart was empty, aching unbearably. He was gone. The father I had just found, and I hadn't said everything I wanted. Memories flooded back. The spilled coffee at the cafe, the interlocking ring tattoos, the regret-filled letters. I sat alone in our Fremont apartment, staring at the rainy street, tears falling endlessly. Mom hugged me, crying too. Son, he's at peace now. But we must be strong. Elaine quickly announced the funeral would be private at St. Helena's, a historic church on Seattle's outskirts, for family and close financial associates only. The press reported closed funeral, no public access. I read it with a heavy heart. Would we be invited? Then an envelope arrived from his office, inviting Mom and me. It was his wish, the butler confirmed by phone. We decided to go, not for status, but to say a final goodbye. Mom hesitated. I'm afraid to face them, son. But then she nodded firmly. For you I'll go. Funeral day. Seattle rained torrentially, as if mourning him. We wore simple black, I in an old shirt, Mom in a plain dress, and drove to the church. St. Helena's appeared, high-vaulted roof, bells tolling mournfully. We entered quietly, drawing scrutinizing stares from all sides. Guests were all wealthy businessmen, politicians, Baxter Arms partners, in glossy black suits and sunglasses. They whispered, seeing us, "That's the bastard son. How dare he come?" I squeezed Mom's hand, trying to stay calm, but anxious, fearing confrontation. We sat in the back row, heads bowed silently. As the priest prayed, his voice echoing in the cold stone space. Lord, receive the soul of your servant, Leonard. Mom whispered, forgiveness. Her voice choking. Leonard, I forgive you. Her tears fell, and I stood behind, my heart utterly empty. No anger, no regret, just a vast void. He was gone, and I hadn't truly been his son. Memories surged, cafe meetings, his stories of the past, his eyes lighting up, hearing about Mom. Now all was nothingness. Elaine and Connor stood up front, their faces stone cold. No tears, no emotion. Elaine in an elegant black gown, Connor in a shiny black suit, looking more like a business meeting than a funeral. Seeing us, they exchanged annoyed glances, then approached. Before everyone, Elaine spoke clearly, her voice echoing in the church. "This is no place for outsiders. She is not Leonard Baxter's son. Some are exploiting this funeral for status." Her words cut like knives, full of scorn. The church buzzed with whispers, guests turning to stare. Connor stepped forward, his voice shrill in agreement. "Mr. Baxter has no illegitimate child. Those two are fabricating to seize assets. Get out!" He pointed at us, his face red with fury. All eyes turned to Mom and me. Some shook their heads. A few whispered pity. Poor old lady. But most showed contempt, as if we were frauds. My heart pounded, anger surging. How dare they humiliate us here, before his coffin? But I gently squeezed Mom's hand, signaling silence. Arguing now would only burden his passing. He deserved peaceful rest, not a fight. Mom trembled but nodded, her eyes red. We stood quietly, left the church amid cold stares, rain pattering outside like his whisper. Behind us, church bells and emerging rumors. They were kicked out, someone said. Back home, Mom sat silent, tears falling. I forgave him, but they're too cruel. I hugged her, my heart aching. The day he passed, everything changed from hope to pain, secret to public. I remembered his final smile, and my tears fell again. The will storm was coming, tense and dramatic. But for now, I just wanted to hold Mom and forget. A week after the funeral, our lives remained steeped in heavy sorrow. I returned to Harbor Light, mechanically brewing coffee, but my mind kept wandering back to St. Helena's Church. The whispers, the contemptuous stares, Elaine and Connor's insults. Mom went out less, sitting by the window, watching rain pattering on Fremont streets, her fingers tracing the interlocking ring tattoo. She tried to be strong, but I saw her weakening, skipping meals, sleepless nights. I worried for her, for myself, and for what was coming. The press wouldn't let go. Billionaire Baxter's will. Who inherits the empire? They speculated wildly, and each headline made my heart pound. I never thought of money. I just wanted to know what he thought of us in his final days. One morning, the phone rang in our small apartment. I was making tea for Mom, holding a steaming kettle, when an unknown number appeared. I answered, my voice shaky. "Hello?" A middle-aged man's voice, polite but serious. "Hello, Tristan Ward. This is Miller and Green, Mr. Leonard Baxter's personal attorneys. We invite you and Mrs. Renee Ward to the will reading this afternoon." My heart tightened, anxiety surging. Will. The word was like a ticking bomb. I stammered, "Yes, we'll be there." Hanging up, I turned to Mom at the table, my eyes wide. "Who was it, son?" I explained slowly, and she shook her head immediately. "I'm not going. I don't care what he left. It's all the past." I understood her pain. 30 years pushed aside, now dragged into power games. She was afraid. Afraid of facing Elaine and Connor. Afraid of rumors. But I persuaded her, sitting beside her, holding her hand. "Mom, I don't want money either. But I want to know what Dad thought in his last days. He regretted it. He tried. Let's go to say goodbye one last time." She looked at me for a long moment, tears on her wrinkled cheeks. She sighed. "All right. For you." We prepared, dressing simply. I in an old black shirt, Mom in a plain black dress, and drove to Miller and Green Inn. Downtown Seattle. Streets crowded, light rain. My heart beating faster than ever. Anxious about what we'd hear. Their reactions. The office was in a gleaming high-rise, oppressively luxurious. As Mom and I entered the conference room, a spacious area with a long wooden table, leather chairs, a faint coffee scent, Elaine and Connor were already waiting. They froze, not expecting us to be invited. Elaine, sharp-featured, her hair in a tight bun, in a power black suit, paused a second, her eyes flashing surprise. Connor, beside her in a shiny black suit, scowling, glared like an enemy. But Elaine quickly composed herself, flashing a thin, fake smile. "Oh, you're here too. Quite a surprise," Connor muttered to her, loud enough for us. "Dad probably left a few pity gifts to show mercy before dying. Don't dream big." His words cut like knives, but I squeezed Mom's hand, signaling silence. We sat opposite, the room tense like a drawn string, anxious, waiting, my heart pounding, wondering what he decided. The lawyer, Mr. Miller, about 60, silver hair, gold-rimmed glasses, entered with a thick file. He sat at the head, his voice calm. "Thank you for coming. We will now read Mr. Leonard Baxter's official will." He opened the file, reading clauses slowly, evenly. Everyone was silent. Only the soft rustle of pages in the elegant space, like a countdown clock. He read about charities, company employees, minor assets. All listened. Elaine clenched her hands. Connor tapped his fingers. I looked at Mom, her head bowed, her eyes red, anxiety rising. I wondered, what did he leave us? A final apology? At the end, the room nearly exploded in silence. Mr. Miller's voice rang out. "All assets, shares, and real estate of Leonard Baxter are legally transferred to Tristan Ward and Mrs. Renee Ward." I froze, my ears ringing. Everything. Baxter Arms, the empire, mansions, bank accounts, all to us. The lawyer continued. Mrs. Elaine Baxter and son Connor Baxter received symbolic assets. An Oregon vacation home worth about $5 million US and $2 million US cash. The room fell dead silent. Elaine froze, her knuckles white gripping her glass, her face ashen. Connor jumped up, slamming the table with a thud, his face red with rage. "What? This is a joke." The old man went mad. They hurled insults. Elaine's voice shrill. "Those two manipulated him when he was sick. What did you do?" "I'll sue. Take it all back." Connor pointed at me. "You bastard! Don't think you'll steal from me." Chaos erupted, chairs toppling, shouts echoing. I stayed calm though, my heart racing. I helped Mom stand. She trembled, her eyes wide in shock. I bowed, thanks to the lawyer. "Thank you, sir." Then we left slowly down the hall, leaving behind toppled chairs and angry shouts in the sealed room. Elaine screamed. "You'll regret this." Connor slammed the table again. Outside, rain fell heavier. We got in the car, my mind chaotic. Massive fortune, but no joy. Only heaviness, anxiety for the coming fight. Before leaving, the lawyer ran after us, handing a sealed envelope. "Mr. Baxter wanted this given to you after the reading. Open it at home." That night, in our small Fremont apartment, under the warm yellow light, I opened it. Inside, a handwritten letter, his shaky script, and a DNA test confirming I was Leonard Baxter's biological son. My heart tightened, tears falling as I read the letter. "My dear son, I regret the past, losing you and Renee. My final days with you were the most peaceful. No power, no ambition, just belated love," he explained. "I leave the assets not to atone, but because I trust you with kindness and clarity to protect the Baxter legacy from those turning it into a tool of greed. Use it for good, son." Finishing, I sat stunned. The yellow light flickered on the trembling letter, and for the first time, I felt the pain, loss, and love of a father. Late, but sincere. Just a few days after the will reading, major Seattle newspapers simultaneously splashed sensational headlines. Baxter Corporation faces massive asset dispute. Shocking will leaves everything to illegitimate son. I woke early, brewing coffee in our small Fremont apartment when my phone buzzed incessantly. Opening it, the screen was flooded with notifications. Seattle Times, The Stranger, even local CNN. They wrote about us like a Hollywood drama. Illegitimate son unexpectedly inherits billion-dollar empire. Rumors spread like wildfire, claiming I, Tristan Ward, had exploited my dying father to seize the fortune. He sat by the bedside, whispering sweet nothings, one article wrote, with a stolen photo of me outside Harbor Light. My heart tightened, anger surging, but also fear. How did they know? Who leaked it? I never dreamed of money. I just wanted a peaceful life with Mom. But now we were thrust into the storm's center. Elaine and Connor didn't sit idle. They hired top attorneys from a leading New York firm and held a press conference the next afternoon. I watched on TV, sitting with Mom in our cramped living room. Elaine stood at the mic, heavily made up, her voice icy. This will is invalid. Leonard Baxter was not of sound mind, emotionally manipulated by a stranger. She stared into the camera as if at us. We will fight to the end to protect the family legacy. Connor beside her, scowling, echoed, "It's a scam. How can a broke waiter be his son?" "We'll prove it." They presented fabricated evidence, statements from a close doctor claiming cognitive decline. Mom tremblingly turned off the TV. "Son, what will they do to us?" I hugged her, my voice reassuring, but my heart was anxious. "Don't worry, Mom. Truth will win." But that night, I lay awake, imagining courtrooms, surrounding reporters, Connor's rage. He wouldn't stop. Social media split into clear camps. I scrolled X, formerly Twitter, #BaxterInheritance trending. One side believed the will, justice finally for the lost son. #Justice for Tristan. The other mocked me as an opportunist, waiter exploits dying old man. Pure greed. #BaxterScam. Comments poured in. Some tagging me directly. Stealing from Connor. "You bastard!" Media swarmed, reporters camping outside our Fremont apartment daily. Early mornings they knocked. "Mr. Ward, comment on the lawsuit." I took back routes to the cafe, dodging flashing cameras. Mom grew fearful, staying indoors, locking tightly, drawing curtains. "I can't take it anymore, son," she whispered, her hands shaking, holding a glass. I stayed silent, ignored the press, waited for the court to accept the case. But inside, chaos, anxious every ring, fearing bad news, fearing Mom breaking under pressure. The waiting days dragged endlessly. I still worked at the cafe, brewing black coffee, no sugar, like he ordered. Each time, memories flooding, his weak hospital smile, his trembling hand holding mine. Mom stayed home, trying laundry work, but her hands shaking, eyes red. I came home early, cooked for her, told funny cafe stories to make her smile. But late nights, I scrolled hateful comments, anger rising. Why wouldn't they leave us alone? We never asked for anything. Elaine and Connor continued their campaign. A second press conference, presenting more evidence, old letters, staff statements claiming he was manipulated. I called our lawyer, Mr. Miller, who read the will. He reassured me, "We have solid proof. Don't worry." But anxiety lingered like a shadow. The trial opened at the Washington State Supreme Court, a historic building in Olympia, 2 hours from Seattle. Plaintiffs. Elaine and Connor filed to invalidate the will, accusing me of exploiting a sick man for assets. First day, we arrived early. Mom in a simple black dress, me in a borrowed old suit. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, lawyers, guests. Elaine sat opposite, her face ice cold. Connor beside her, glaring hostilely. The judge's gavel struck, trial begins. Their lawyer, a sly veteran, presented. Mr. Baxter had severe heart failure, not lucid. Tristan Ward exploited, coerced the will. They submitted evidence, medical reports, doctor statements. My heart pounded, anxious, waiting for our turn. Would our proof hold? In session, our lawyer, Mr. Miller, stood calmly, submitting our evidence. First, the DNA test, confirming paternity. The paper from his envelope, proving I'm his biological son. The courtroom buzzed. Next, his handwritten letter, shaky but clear. I was fully lucid when signing. Then, notarized statements from his old lawyer and butler, witnessing him sign willingly, lucid, no pressure. Mr. Baxter acted freely. No manipulation. The butler testified. Elaine stayed composed, her face paling, her hands clenched. Connor kept interrupting, shouting, "All staged. Fake." He stood, pointing at me. "You bribed them." The judge warned, but Connor fumed. The court verified signatures, fingerprints, audio of the signing day, all matched, flawless. Their lawyer tried rebutting, but the evidence was overwhelming. Trial days dragged, tense every second. I sat with Mom, her hand ice cold. Reporters outside waited. Flashes constant. Elaine testified, fake crying, he was deceived. But the court dismissed it. When the verdict was announced, the panel officially upheld the will's legality and Tristan Ward's inheritance rights. The courtroom fell silent. Time frozen. I exhaled. No joy, just relief. Connor jumped, yelling, "No! This is a joke." Then he lunged at me, his face red, his fist raised. Security tackled him, dragged him out. Elaine panicked, screaming, "Connor, my son!" She sobbed, but her eyes were furious. I stood still, no reaction. My eyes were more sad than angry, watching them led away. Connor struggling. Elaine collapsing. I felt no victory, no joy, just emptiness. Why like this? He just wanted fairness, but they turned it into a war. Mom squeezed my hand. "Son, we won." "But won what?" "We just wanted peace." Leaving, reporters swarmed, lenses flashing. They bombarded. "How do you feel? What about Baxter Arms?" I stopped, looked at them, my voice brief. Truth needs no embellishment. It just needs time to be seen. Then I helped Mom to the car, drove back to Fremont in the rain, my heart still anxious, though victorious. Wounds remained. In the days following the trial, my life felt like the chaotic remnants left after a storm. The press still wouldn't leave us alone. Sensational headlines like "Illegitimate Son Wins Lawsuit," "Who Owns the Baxter Empire Now?" with photos of Mom and me leaving the courthouse, weary faces under the rain. Reporters still camped outside, calling relentlessly, but I turned off my phone, locked the door, trying to carve out space for us to breathe. Mom, after months of turmoil, was weaker than ever. She sat at the kitchen table, holding Mr. Baxter's letter, tracing the shaky handwriting. "Son, what will we do with all this?" she asked, her voice soft but full of worry. I looked at her, my heart aching. We never dreamed of wealth. We just wanted peace. But now this massive fortune felt like a burden, a reminder of losses. I decided we had to leave noisy Seattle, where every glance carried rumors, where memories of him, the courtroom, the insults, remained fresh. I began arranging everything. Hired lawyers to handle inheritance paperwork. Sold most non-essential assets, the Baxter Hill mansion, downtown properties, minor shares, keeping enough for comfortable, not extravagant, living. Sale proceeds went into a separate fund, untouched unless needed. Mom initially resisted. "Son, we're used to here." But I persuaded her, sitting beside her, holding her hand. "Mom, Seattle is the past now. We need a new place where no one knows who we are." She nodded, her eyes red. We chose Port Townsend, a small coastal town on the Olympic Peninsula, 2 hours by ferry from Seattle. Peaceful, with sparkling Puget Sound, lush pine forests, and salty sea breezes. I bought a modest house on a slope overlooking the sea. Dark wooden roof, old stone walls, a spacious front porch. Not expensive, but the view? Breathtaking. Waves lapping, boats drifting, fiery sunsets every evening. We moved in on an autumn morning. Our belongings were just a few boxes, old books, family photos, and his letters. Life gradually returned to peace after months of storms. In those early days, Mom and I cleaned the house, repainted walls white, planted lavender on the porch, her favorite from youth. Its sweet scent drifting with the wind. She planted herself, kneeling on the damp soil, her calloused hands digging, smiling at new shoots. "Son, these flowers will bloom beautifully." Watching her, my heart warmed. Her face, losing worry lines, was replaced by serenity. Nights, we sat on the porch, listening to waves, sharing old stories. Fremont years, Mr. Baxter, the interlocking ring tattoos. "I once thought my life was only suffering," she said softly. "But now I feel peace." I nodded, but still anxious, fearing the past returning, fearing Elaine and Connor not letting go despite the verdict. But Port Townsend was another world. Locals were friendly, not nosy, just greeting on the street. We blended in gradually, like two ordinary people escaping the big city. I decided to open a small cafe, naming it Interlock, a symbol of the shared tattoo between my parents. Two rings entwined, reminding of a love severed, but finally reconnected. The idea came suddenly, sitting by the sea, thinking of mornings brewing at Harbor Light. "I'll make a cafe like that, Mom," I told her, and she smiled. "Great idea, son." Like a memory of him. I designed everything myself. Found a seaside space, an old wooden building. Painted walls pale green, rustic wooden tables and chairs. A counter with manual coffee machines. I learned bean roasting, experimented with recipes. Black coffee, no sugar, like he loved, with homemade baked goods. The cafe opened after 3 months of prep, quickly becoming a local favorite. They came for good coffee, sea views, cozy vibes. No one knowing the owner was once the center of a massive inheritance lawsuit. "Nice place, buddy," a local fisherman said, sipping espresso. I smiled, strangely joyful. This was the life I wanted. Simple. No power plays. Every morning, Mrs. Renee helped brew coffee, arrange pastries, chat with regulars. She rose early, a clean apron, her hands deftly stacking toast, homemade croissants. "How's the coffee today, ma'am?" customers asked. And she beamed, "Great, dear. Try it." Her face brightened after years of gloom, wrinkles softening, eyes sparkling, humming softly while working. Watching from the counter, gratitude filled me. "Happy, Mom?" I asked one quiet afternoon. She nodded. "Very, son. Haven't felt this in so long." Those moments erased anxiety, forgetting Elaine, the court, just small joys. But late nights, I remembered him. His letter. His words, "Do good." And I decided to act. I used part of the inheritance to establish the Leonard Foundation, supporting single mothers and orphans, extending the regret and love he left. The idea came from his letter, to protect his legacy from ambition. I hired experts to manage it, investing in scholarships, temporary housing, counseling. The foundation started small but expanded quickly, helping dozens of mothers, like mine once was, raising children alone in hardship. "This is for him, Mom," I said, signing papers. She cried. "He'd be proud of you." Meanwhile, I transferred full control of Baxter Holdings, now Baxter Arms, to a new executive board loyal to him. I kept only honorary oversight, no daily involvement. In my letter to them, "Hope you run it by values, not ambition. Remember, legacy isn't money, it's responsibility." They replied, promising to follow. And I exhaled. The empire was no longer a burden. Time passed. Interlock grew beloved. More customers, locals to passers-by. I opened small branches around Puget Sound, one in Sequim, one on Bainbridge Island. Keeping the rustic style, handcrafted coffee. Our cafes became not just drink spots, but meeting places, storytelling, sharing. I hired young staff, taught them brewing like he preferred, each cafe with the interlocking ring tattoo on the wall, a subtle symbol. Mrs. Renee sometimes sat by the home window, watching the sea and smiling, saying she could truly forgive the past. "I once hated him, son," she shared one afternoon, the sea breeze cooling. "But now I see he tried. And you're the greatest gift." I sat listening, my heart warm. This new life, peaceful, meaningful, like a flower blooming from ashes. I understood that any loss, no matter how painful, can bloom if we know how to rise from it. Nights in Port Townsend, lying to wave sounds, I recall the journey. Spilled coffee, tattoo, courtroom. Now peace. Initial anxiety became hope. We survived and lived better. Mom planted more lavender. Cafes thrived. Foundation helped many. Life, ultimately, is about forgiveness and starting anew. In that simple life, I realized I was no longer haunted by the past. Early mornings, when the sun just peeked over Puget Sound, I stepped onto the porch, breathing the salty sea air, feeling an unusual lightness in my heart. No more sleepless nights thinking of Mr. Baxter kneeling at Harbor Light, Elaine's shrill insults at St. Helena's, or Connor lunging in court with rage-red eyes. All the pain, resentment, and loss had finally been swept away by the waves, like those out there, crashing on the rocks, then vanishing, leaving clean sand, ready for new footprints. I stood there, holding a self-brewed coffee, watching Mom water the lavender on the porch, and smiled. Mrs. Renee's silver hair, brighter in the sea air. She laughed more now, humming old songs from her youth. "Son, any new customers at the cafe today?" she asked cheerfully. And I knew she was letting go of the years of shame, the judgmental stares. Life is sometimes unfair. But justice reveals itself in its own way. Not through revenge, but truth and perseverance. I think of this whenever I sit by the sea, bare feet in wet sand. Back in Seattle, it was a nightmare. Spreading rumors, surrounding reporters, Elaine and Connor's accusations of exploitation. They tried everything, press conferences, expensive lawyers, even anonymous threatening calls to overturn the will. But truth is, as Mr. Miller said in court, it needs no embellishment. It just needs time to surface, like waves receding to reveal hidden shells. I never sought revenge. No countersuits, no media smears, just silence, steadfast with evidence, the DNA paper, his handwritten letter, the butler's testimony. Now in Port Townsend, I realize true justice isn't winning the case, but living on without hatred's burden. Elaine and Connor vanished from our lives after the trial, perhaps living with their symbolic share. I understand hatred can't heal wounds, only forgiveness lets us reclaim ourselves. Forgiveness isn't for others, but to free your own heart. I learned this from afternoons on the porch with Mom. Mrs. Renee, pushed aside from Mr. Baxter's life, and enduring 30 years of silent shame, now spoke of him gently. "I hated him so much, son," she shared one evening, the sunset blazing over the sea. "I hated him for choosing power over us, but that hate only hurt me more. Forgiving, it lightened me. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace." Her words were a life lesson, echoing in me. I once raged at Elaine and Connor, their sneers at the mansion, the hospital, the funeral. But gradually, in Port Townsend, I let go. Forgave them. Forgave him for past weakness. Forgave myself for hesitation. My heart is freer. No more anxiety. A mother's love, no matter how wounded, is the only thing that lifted me through the storm. She taught me kindness is never weakness. Mom is the living proof. In Fremont years, she raised me alone. Hands calloused from laundry, enduring contempt without complaint. She taught, "Son, kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. It keeps you standing when everything collapses." In Port Townsend, that love shone clearer. She helped at the cafe, chatting with customers, fishermen, tourists, local single moms, with warm smiles. Once a young mother shared her struggles raising a child alone, and Mom listened, then gave her free coffee. "You're so strong, dear. I was like you, but it gets better." Her words moved me, recalling nights she cried secretly in Seattle, but still comforted me. That love pulled me up after court, the funeral, every loss. Without her, I might have crumbled under pressure, media, lawsuits, words. Money can buy power, but not lost trust or time. My father's true legacy isn't bank accounts, but lessons in honesty and responsibility. I ponder this, gazing at the glowing interlock sign, and see sunlight. The vast fortune from Mr. Baxter, billions, Baxter Arms shares, once a burden, but now clear, money is a tool. It buys mansions, luxury cars, but not the 30 years he missed with me, not the trust Mrs. Renee lost. His true legacy is his letter. Regret. Faith in my kindness. I used the money responsibly. The Leonard Foundation helped hundreds of single mothers, scholarships for their kids, temporary housing, job counseling. Once a mother wrote, "Thanks. You saved our lives." My heart warmed, knowing this redeems him through me. For Baxter Arms, I oversee remotely, ensuring a clean tech focus, not ambitious weapons. Money now bridges good, not power. Like Elaine thought, I spend the rest of my life spreading this, helping the vulnerable, funding single mothers, repaying what I received. Years in Port Townsend flowed peacefully, but I don't stop. The Leonard Foundation expands. Seattle branch, charity partnerships, vocational training for orphans. I speak not boasting but sharing, from waiter to heir, lost to peace. Life gives lessons, I say at a conference, and we must give back. Mom, proud you did well. Mrs. Renee finds true peace. Afternoons. She sits on the porch, watching the sea and smiling. The smile of one who finally forgave those who hurt her. I thought I'd hate forever, but the sea washed it away, she says, tracing the tattoo. Tristan, behind the counter, watching interlocks sparkle in sunlight, understands. Every loss has meaning if we rise from it. Cafe mornings. Customer laughter. Roasting coffee scent. I feel it clearly. The spilled coffee years ago was the start. The tattoo linking past. Court teaching resolve. Sea teaching forgiveness. Their story reminds, the heaviest sentence isn't in court, but the moment we face ourselves and realize life's greatest treasure, not assets, but inner peace. In Port Townsend, we live that peaceful, meaningful life. So, what does this all mean? For me, it's about understanding that even the deepest wounds can heal, and sometimes, the biggest blessings come disguised in the most painful packages. It's about choosing peace over bitterness, and purpose over power. My life, once defined by a simple hum, then shattered by a secret, now echoes with a different kind of strength, one built on resilience, forgiveness, and the quiet joy of a new beginning. Tell me, I'm genuinely curious, if you found yourself in my shoes, with a secret family, a massive inheritance, and enemies around every corner, what would you have done with that kind of power? ***, let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. Video outro music starts.